we're going to talk about brushes in a moment, but first I want to talk about the pencil tool. So it's hiding in here with the paintbrush tool. If you double click on it, you bring up the tool options panel, the pencil tool options. So in here we have a number of things. Fidelity is how close it is to your hand movement. So if you have a shaky hand, you may want to increase the smoothing aspect of this. This basically is going to pick up your hand movements more accurately. This will smooth out your hand movements. Usually with pencils, we don't want to fill, we just want to stroke. So that one I usually leave unchecked. Keep selected, I usually keep on. Option key toggles the smoothing tool. Okay, so this is important. Toggle holding the option key to get the smoothing tool, and that's going to be really important. Close paths when they get within 15 pixels, and edit selected path. So let's see what that means. So I'm going to come in here and draw something. And first of all, you see when I hold down the option key, then I get the smoothing. And you can just draw over, because the path is still selected, you can draw over, and what it's doing, the smoothing is basically removing points. So it smooths it out by deleting points. Now you can also modify or edit the path itself by drawing over the top of it. Oh, another one I want to show you is this tool down here, the width tool. This tool is pretty cool. I'm going to zoom in. Click on the path and drag. You see how it widens the path? So I could widen it there, and then maybe I click here and reduce it, and then down here I could thicken it out. So you can get this thick and thin quality, which is really nice. Because this was Angus was created in Illustrator and then brought into, it was created into Illustrator and then brought into Photoshop. So that's how I got the thick and thin lines, which makes for a more interesting illustration instead of having everything just the same. So you can do the thick and thin, you can do the lost and found. So this thing is a lot of fun, I think. It's the width tool, and you can just click anywhere again and drag it out. You can click again and drag it in. So with strokes in Illustrator, you can have gradient strokes. So I'm going to open up my swatches. So for example, see that one? I just clicked on this. Let me look at the gradient panel. I could change that. You can change the stroke to radial, linear. Now, the one thing I want to spend a lot of time on today is the brushes. I've given you a handout on brushes, so I hope you will refer to it. Okay, so we have two very different types of brushes in Illustrator. We have what I call standard brushes, and within standard brushes, there are 5 different types of brushes. And then we have something called the blob brush, which behaves very, very differently from the other brushes. So we'll start out by looking at the standard brushes. So it's in here with the pencil tool. Now this, I'm using my graphics tablet now. So hopefully some of you at least were able to get the tablet. I want to open up the brushes panel. Okay, and I'm just going to double click on one of these brushes. Take this one here. So this is a calligraphic brush. So we have, like I said, 5 different brushes. We have a calligraphic brush. We have something called scatter brushes, art brushes, pattern brushes, bristle brushes. So this is the options, the brush options for the calligraphic brush. Now you can change it. Right now, if it's a circle, you're not going to see much as far as sort of the wavy ribbon quality that you can see with calligraphic pens, for example. I'm going to make it into an ellipse, and I'm going to change the size from random to pressure. Now when you do the pen pressure in Illustrator, you have to set up a variation. And you can see up here what it's going to look like, how small and how large it's going to be. So I'm going to say okay, and then I'll come out here and paint. I'll go just to black and okay. You can also change the angle. So this is similar to Photoshop, to the tilt. And then whenever you change something in here, it's going to ask you, do you want to apply it to the existing strokes, or do you want to leave the existing strokes the way they are? So you can choose. I'll leave them the way they are. I want to point out you can also click on the tool itself, and this is something similar to what we saw for the pencil. You have the fidelity, keep selected, edit selected, and so forth. So that's editing the tool. This is actually editing the type of brush or the brush tip. You can use your bracket keys as in Photoshop to increase the size. I'm going to get rid of all of these. So calligraphic. Now we have lots of calligraphic brushes. If you click on the library down here, like if you go to artistic, here's our calligraphic. And under calligraphic, we have a lot of variations. Again, as we saw with swatches and with patterns and different things, if you first you open up the library and then you click on the one you want to use, that brush gets added to your brushes panel. And basically with the calligraphic brushes, what we're seeing are simply brushes that are more narrow than others. Okay, so now we have another type of brush. So let's take this one here, for example, this charcoal brush. And the size of the brush is also determined by your stroke. So like I'm going to come over here to my stroke and crank this up. And you see how it's made it much larger. Let's keep in mind that if I do Command Y and go to outline mode, you see that the brush has simply created a path, and then we've applied an appearance to it. In this case, the appearance that we have applied is a brush that's called an art brush. And what an art brush is, it is a piece of artwork that is simply saved as a brush, and then it is stretched across the length of your path, of your stroke. The default is stretch to fit. You can also do proportionally, which is going to usually make it look really crazy. Usually leaving it stroke to fit, leaving stretch to fit stroke length is usually what I want. And now not all of these have the option to use pressure sensitivity. This does not, because this is a piece of artwork that is simply stretched across the whole length of the path. So doing a thick and thin with pressure really would have no value for you. Now we have lots of different art brushes. So if we come down here, for example, well, let's do the charcoal. These are really nice. Some of the brushes in Illustrator are very nice. I'm going to go in here, make sure that it's on scale to fit. And I'm going to lower my point sizes. Let me get this back in there. We have a lot of them that are really nice. Like we have special arrows, we have patterned arrows. These, I think, actually, these fall into pattern because they're called pattern arrows. That's a different type of brush, pattern brush. I think these standard arrows, yeah, these are art brushes. So this is artwork that is stretched along the length of the path. Same thing here, these are art brushes. So you can see they can be a lot of fun. Let's go through some of these others that are really nice. I don't think oh yeah, the charcoal, pretty nice. Then we got watercolor. Watercolor creates gradients like this, which are pretty good too. Very nice. And you can switch whenever you've got a stroke created. I'm just going to hold down the command key and select this path. You can change it to any other brush you like, since it is simply an appearance that's applied to the path. Let's look at a few more here. I think the scroll pen is awesome. It's really a lot of fun. I don't get a chance to use it much, but I really love the way it looks. Look, it's not working. There we go. So you get a really cool graphic look. You could also apply it to a circle. For example, I don't have to even use the brush. I can take any shape and then apply a brush to it. Try a different one. Now I'm using the Option key, and that gives me the smooth tool, so I can smooth out this stroke. Okay, so those are art brushes, and we've got quite a few of them. I think these elegant curl and florals may be of interest. So these things, when you're doing your storybook, you may want to do something like this at the end of a paragraph. I don't know if you've seen that in some books. They'll have something like this. And this could be applied to just a straight line also. So for example, I'll just take the pen tool and create a straight line, and then apply one of these to it, like that. There's a bunch of them. Okay. Artistic ink is really nice. Now, ink can be either scatter brush or art brush. These are scatter brushes across here. But instead of stretching the artwork across the path, a scatter brush distributes multiple iterations of the shape of the artwork along the length of the path. So like if I choose one of these, you see it's taking, this is the brush, and it's distributing it along my path. And if I double click on this, open it up, come on, open. I should be able to open that up. Oh, I need to open it up in brushes panel, here. Okay, so in here, this is a scatter brush. So scatter brush will let me apply pressure, and then here I can set up the variation. Let's say okay. Let's say we apply it. So it's kind of crazy. Try it really light and really heavy. So that makes a big difference. If we go to one of these, then it's simply taking the artwork again and stretching it along the path. So scatter brushes are very different. See if I can find some more for you. Here's decorative scatter. So these could be a lot of fun also. I'll just take this sort of star thing. I come in here, I get pressure. You got all kinds of them that you can play with there. Now borders are a lot of fun. Borders are what they call pattern brushes. So let's say we go to decorative borders. These work best on like rectangular shapes, but they don't have to. You can paint with them, but I'm just going to choose a rectangle right now to show you. So let's say I take this one here. If we open this one up in the brushes panel, you're going to see that we have up to 5 different tiles or patterns that can be used. This is only using 2. So it's got one for the corner and then one for the segments in between. It's missing one in here. So this one would be, seems like it'd be this one here. So we'd have to create another pattern to fit in there. Strange that they don't do it. Since this is a default brush, I would think they'd have one. This can also, like I said, be applied to just a stroke. I'm going to try it on an ellipse. And let's look at what other ones we've got here. We have decorative. Oh, here's text dividers. I want to show you that one too. Well, I guess I'll just stick with this group. That one's fun. Okay. I wanted to take a look at, under decorative, we have text dividers. So this is similar to what I was talking about previously. This could be at the beginning or at the end of a paragraph. These are quite nice. They tend to look, they tend to look a little bit clip arty because they are presets. So you don't want to rely on them too heavily. But occasionally you could use them, and particularly if you modify them in some way, make them your own. Okay, so that's, we also have something else called a bristle brush. So let's take a look at the bristle brush. So these are supposed to look like real brushes as far as the results go. So what it's doing is, I'll zoom in here, is it's putting down multiple appearances and then blurring them, blending them together. So we have, we don't have pressure sensitivity in this case, but we can modify these things. This is similar to Photoshop. I don't know if you remember these, but we can change the size, obviously. We can change, this will change, subtly, but it will change the way it looks and the way it feels as you're working with it. So that's interesting. Okay, so that's calligraphic, we have art, we have scatter, we have bristle, and we have pattern. Now I want to show you, it's very easy to create your own brushes. So let's create a little bug. So I'm just going to create like a little ant. Zoom in here. Put a little head on him, her. This one I just want to have stroke, but not filled. Okay, I'll give you guys a minute to create your bug. Okay, everybody good? All right, so I'm just going to select my bug and drag it into the brushes panel. Now it's going to ask me what type of brush I want. So let's start with the art brush. Say okay. I'll say okay. I'm just going to keep this guy over here for a minute, and then with my brush tool, see what happens? It takes it and stretches it along the length of the path because this is an art brush. Now let's take it and get rid of these guys. Make another one. This one will be a scatter brush. I'll do this one pressure. Give myself some variation. Okay. So I must not have gotten my whole thing. Let me try it again. Now, in the brush options, there's an option here, rotation relative to page or to path. So if I do it to path, then they're going to line up along the path. Do it again. So you can make a brush out of anything pretty much, just like we did in Photoshop. You could use your name. You could use any piece of artwork that you want to create. Just drag it over into the brushes panel. You can also modify existing brushes. So like we have this ink spot here, this ink splatter. I'm going to drag this one out. That gives me one instance of it. I can go up to expand under the object panel. And then I'll ungroup it. Usually you have to ungroup it a couple of times. Command-Shift-G ungroups it. Still not ungrouping. Maybe it didn't expand. Let me expand it. There, now they're separate. So you expand it or expand appearance, and then you can modify these things, edit them individually. So like if we wanted more variation, so I'm just making it some bigger, some smaller, so forth. And then I could put it back in the brushes as a new brush, a variation. So gives you a lot of options. You could also create your own, again, your own splatters, your own, make it a scatter brush, pressure, okay. Once it's in there, you can delete this. There it is. Now, I also, maybe to get some randomness, I could go in here, rotation random. That didn't seem to do anything. I'll try it again. I'll put random on all these, just try to get some variation. I'm actually not getting any rotation. Oh, maybe I have to put in the variation. Sorry, I forgot. In Illustrator, you have to add variation. Looks like it's going very far away or something. Yeah, it's going way too far away. Yeah. Well, I'd have to play around with that a little bit more to see what kind of results I can come up with that work a little bit more effectively. I do want to talk about, let's just go to a regular calligraphic brush. So if we got a stroke here, and then I've got a stroke here, say we wanted to combine these two strokes. So in the brushes options window, let's see. Okay, so you want to make sure that this works. Edit selected path. Okay. And then you need to select both parts and then hold the command key as you drag along the path. Okay, so I'm going to select both of these and then hold the command key as I start dragging. Whoops, I didn't want it to delete it. There. So that joined it. So the trick is have both segments selected. Start drawing, hold the command key, and then it'll join it. Oh, I also wanted to show you, for example, let's say I've got a circle here and it has a arc brush applied to it. In the appearance panel, let me get over here out of the way, it's going to show you what brush is applied to it. Here in the, actually it's not in the appearance panel, it's in the properties panel. It used to be in the appearance panel, now it's separately in the properties panel. Okay, here's another point I want to make. So now you can change the brush attributes of only the selected item by clicking on options of selected object at the bottom of the brush panel. So here's my brushes panel. I'm going to get options right here, options of selected object. So if I come in here, then I can make some changes if I wanted to. Click preview so you can see it. So that gives you a few more options right there. One other thing I wanted to point out while we're in brushes. So I'm just going to create an object, doesn't matter what it is. I will give it a fill, maybe something so we can see it. I want to talk about these little buttons down here. We have the draw behind, the draw inside. So let's take a look at the draw inside. So you have something selected. I'm going to click on this. Once you have it draw inside, you get this dotted outline around it, dotted frame. Then I'm going to take the brush and if I draw, it's only going to show up where it goes inside, where it overlaps or intersects the object. So what's happening here? Well, what it's doing is it's automatically creating a clipping mask. And if we go up here to Object, Clipping Mask, well, let me select it first, select the whole thing, Object, Clipping Mask, Release. That's what it really looks like. So clipping mask make, then it goes back to the draw inside. So in this case, because I did it this way, I lost my color. Now we have another one that's a draw behind. So that's this one. So the draw behind, again, I guess I didn't have it selected. Draw behind, oh, it has to be filled. Let me give it a different color so that we can see it. Okay, then draw behind. Okay, so what the draw behind is doing, it's simply changing the stacking order in the layers panel. So if I go to my layers panel, and let me undo this. So normally, if I'm painting, it's just going to go right on top. Let me see if I can make this work the way I want it to. Okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take my brush. Okay, so if I don't have this selected, it's normal. It puts it on top. That's what I'm trying to get to. If I have this selected, and then this, it changes the stacking order and it just starts putting them below it. So it's not masking it, it's just putting them below the object in the layers panel. So one creates a mask and the other simply rearranges the stacking order. But it can be very convenient, so it's something to be familiar with. Okay. The next one I do want to talk about is the blob brush. So the blob brush is a very different animal. And while other brushes in Illustrator are paths to which appearances are applied, the blob brush creates a shape. By default, strokes of the same color are merged into a single shape or compound path as you paint. Okay, so the blob brush is here under the regular paintbrush. And I want to make sure I'm not in classic. I want to be in essentials so that it looks the same as yours. Okay. So the blob brush, let's double click on the tool. So we have some options here to keep in mind. So keep selected. We're going to play around with these and see what happens when we do one or the other. I am going to use pen pressure, and I've got a variation set up here. I'm going to say okay, and start drawing. Now, remember before when I did Command Y, we just see a single path. Look what we've got now. We've got a shape. And when we add to it, it creates just a more complicated shape. Here we've got a compound shape, compound path. Again, my bracket keys. I want to show you something here. If I go like this, you can turn over your stylus and use the other side to finesse it. It's like an eraser. If you don't have a stylus, you can use the eraser tool and it will do the same thing. So this makes drawing really, really nice. Many artists like this, to draw with better than the regular brushes. Regular brushes are great for special effects, but for actually drawing things, because you can get a nice thick and thin, you can turn this over and modify it. Now let's take a look at some of these options again now that we've played with it a little bit. Say we keep selected. Well, let's say we only merge with selected. So if I go like this, I'll go into outline mode. See that? It's not merging with them unless it's selected, and then it merges. So if I do keep selected, I would have to hold the command key and deselect it, and then it won't merge with it. Okay, now I wanted to show you something here. Also, Adobe has given us some graphic styles which you can apply to the blob brush. So for the graphic styles to work, you should select it first. So let's open up the window, go to Window, open up Graphic Styles. Basically, graphic styles are just presets of appearances. So it's so for example, let's say you come here and then you can go down to Additive for Blob Brush. That brings up this collection. Basically, there are things like drop shadows. Here's one with a drop shadow. So I'm going to add that one. And now with that one selected, when I paint, it automatically creates a drop shadow. If I already have one selected and then I want to add the graphics, I have to hold down the Option key and click on it. Then it adds it.